in terms of the Night of the Long Knives, and the types of questions that you can face. So your 8-mark usefulness question. Now, apologies, as some of you might have seen, I didn't think I explained it particularly well yesterday. So I had a free period immediately after when I would have been teaching Year 13 PSHE. So I recorded a video where I produced it with a bit more clarity. So not massively different to what I was saying to you in the lesson. I was telling you the right things, but I just don't think I explained myself as well as I could have done. So that is there for you. Obviously, I don't expect you to watch that all now from start to finish, but if you need to refer back to how to answer these types of questions, that is there for you. What I've also shared in the classroom, and I've also added it to today's assignment lesson thing, is the model answers that I wrote nice and clearly for you. So they're there to contribute. So yesterday was the I part, the bit where I model an answer. Today, we're going to do the we part and we're going to do the you part. So it's really important you listen carefully and that you contribute, because at the start of today's lesson, so the first part, we're going to answer a usefulness question together. We're going to look at a source together and we're going to answer it together. Then in the second part of the lesson, you will have a go at doing one yourself. Okay, on the same area, also Night of the Long Knives, and this isn't a case of, you know, it's not exam conditions as such, because I can't control that. So obviously you can use the internet to gain information, but not please copying and pasting anything, because that will defeat the whole object. Okay, right. Now, what I would like you to do, first of all, please, and I'll share my screen so this will hopefully make a bit of sense to you. Okay, on the Google Classroom, you will find there's an assignment that says, how useful are sources C and D for an inquiry into the Hitler's consolidation of power? And you will find two very similar looking documents, one of which will create a copy for yourself about source D. We can ignore that one. You don't need that one yet. What I do want you to open, though, is source C. Now, source C won't let you write on it. That's not a mistake. That's because I've nominated myself scribe. So I am going to be responsible for writing what we together as a group come up with. Okay, so the first thing that I want us to focus on is the source itself. And it is a cracker. It's very much a classic choice of source for this topic. Oh, sorry. Which is the Adolf is a swine source. I'm just going to see if I can, there we go. Bear with you one moment. Just going to try and get it so I can see you and see the source, but that might be hard. Okay, now forget that. So Adolf is a swine. His old friends are not good enough for him. Adolf is turning into a gentleman. He wants to sit on a hilltop and pretend he is God. Now, this comes from the book Hitler Speaks, published in 1940 by Hermann Rauschning, a Nazi official who emigrated from Germany in 1936. So to emigrate means that he has left and gone somewhere else. Here, he is quoting, sorry, I should say he is quoting the words. He is quoting the words, or quoting words even, spoken by Ernst Röhm when he was drunk in 1934. Okay. Ryan, if you want to unmute for me, please, and tell me, who is Ernst Röhm? Or if you've got microphone problems, if you want to just type into the chat for me, who is Ernst Röhm? Okay, and Ryan's response, the leader of the SA. Correct. Okay, so we get a bit of a sense here. Let's have a look at him. Be ready to be absolutely mesmerized by his attractiveness. Here he is. Whew. Wow. I'm sure we can all agree that's a pretty alluring individual. A wonderful hairstyle in particular. Certainly made centre partings cool. Now you can see here that he is there in military uniform. We've got the swastika. He looks every inch the Nazi. And you can see that there are pictures of him with Hitler in close collaboration with Hitler. Ernst Röhm is somebody who's important. Now, as the leader of the SA, the Sturmarbeitung, who were responsible, as we know, for doing a lot of the things that the Nazis needed to scare people and gain power. So right from the start, they've been an important group, and Ernst Röhm is in charge. Now, let's have a look at this source first together before we go into looking at the writing of it. Adolf, meaning Adolf Hitler, is a swine. Adolf is a swine. Kezia, do you want to unmute for me and tell me, what is a swine? What does Röhm mean by saying Adolf is a swine?
Isn't a swine like a derogatory word, like saying a pig?
Absolutely that. Thank you very much. Yeah, the idea, and commonly at this time, being called a pig, which we might see as a fairly minor comment, being called a pig is a really big deal. Ruby, so a really good point. Yeah, the SA was sort of like a terrorist group, but they were part of the Nazi party there. Paramilitary, they call it, which is willing to use force. Okay, so we've got the leader of the SA calling Adolf Hitler a swine. Now, already, this is not looking very complimentary. So right from the off of this quotation, we can see that Ernst Röhm is being pretty unpleasant towards Adolf Hitler, the leader of the party. Now, why do we think, looking at what it tells us about this source, why might Ernst Röhm be critical of Hitler so publicly? What might be influencing him to speak publicly, surrounded by other people, describing Hitler as a swine? Joe, do you want to, Roach that is, do you want to unmute and tell me why, looking at what it tells us about this source, what might be the reason why Ernst Röhm is mouthing off about Hitler? Or if you can't unmute, if you can type in the chat for me. Okay. All right. Haven't heard anything yet, so I'm going to give somebody else a chance to contribute, and I'll follow up just in case. I know Joe would never dream of logging on and not listening intently, but we can. I will obviously double check that. Oliver P, Mr. Price, can you unmute please and tell me what, based on this source, do you think is the reason why Ernst Röhm is speaking so publicly? You can either unmute or type in the chat. Yes, you, Joe. Wonderful. Joe, you can either unmute or can you type in the chat, why is Ernst Röhm publicly being so freely in speaking and describing Adolf as a swine? Have a look at what it tells you about the circumstances in which he is speaking. There's your clue.
He just I don't know, he feels like Hitler has become too big for his boots. I don't know.
Good. Yeah, love that phrase, Joe. But have a look at the bold writing. What does it tell you about Ernst Röhm, which might make him be loud, not perhaps thinking as clear as he could be, and making bad decisions?
Oh, he was drunk.
He was drunk, yes. So a wise lesson for all of you. Thank you very much, Joe. Spot on. A wise lesson for all of you. Obviously, I'm sure none of you would ever dream of drinking alcohol at your young age. But in the future, if you were, alcohol can lead you to say things and do things and act in a way that the next day you regret. And in the case of Ernst Röhm, arguably, having a few drinks and getting a bit gobby is going to cost him his life. So let's carry on. He says his old friends are not good enough for him. Adolf is turning into a gentleman. Who might he be referring to as his old friends are not good enough for him? Who might he mean? Oliver P. So you can unmute Oliver Price or you can type in the chat, I don't mind. But who might he be referring to as his old friends are not good enough for him anymore? Who is Röhm talking about here? Good. So the idea that Rome believes he's better than the rest of them, but I think he's referring to Hitler this way. So he's saying Hitler is being the gobby one. Hitler is the one who's saying that he is better than the others. The old friends, think about what we know about the history of the Nazis. We're talking about 1934 now. Who might Rome think Hitler should have loyalty to, given that now he's Chancellor? Let's ask Oliver Knight. Who might Rome rather believe that Hitler should be loyal to and isn't showing loyalty to?
Himself, almost.
So to Ernst Röhm?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Why? Why would Rome feel that Hitler should be supporting him?
Well, because he almost does. Well, he does quite a lot for him. Like he controls his army. So
absolutely. Fantastic. Good. In a strange link, I don't know if any of you have seen, and this is, maybe you haven't because you have more exciting lives, but my kids really like the film The Greatest Showman. And in The Greatest Showman, there's a scene where his sort of groups of people who've been left out by society, they are then sort of put on stage, and it's great. And then when the guy who is in charge of the show, P.T. Barnum, he's trying to sort of hang out with the opera singers and the posh people. So he tells the people who are a bit different, he tells them to stay out of the way. And there's this sort of scene where they come out and sing a song. And the idea is that he's forgotten the people who put him where he is today. And that's really what Ernst Röhm is getting at here, that Hitler should be praising and should be listening to those who were by his side at the Munich Putsch, those who were there in the mid to late 20s, sticking by him when times were tough. And Ernst Röhm is suggesting that Adolf is turning into a gentleman. He wants to sit on a hilltop and pretend he is God. He's saying that Hitler, basically, to go back to the excellent way that Joe phrased it, he's too big for his boots. And Hitler now wants to hang out with the elites of Germany, particularly Rome, I think here is referring to the army as well, because some of the context that we'll know from yesterday is that Ernst Röhm felt that the army should be absorbed into the SA rather than the other way around, of the SA becoming part of the army. So this is the context. This is this background in which Ernst Röhm gets drunk, starts mouthing off about Hitler, and of course what he comes out and says publicly finds its way back to Hitler. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Bear with me one moment. Let me just stop presenting. And I can present a tab for you in a moment. I would like you, please, guys. As I said, we are going to answer this question together. And I'm having a go at a way of doing that, which might crash and burn, but hopefully, if it works, it could be quite a useful way of doing it. So just bear with me one moment whilst the internet catches up. Okay, right. In the chat, I'm posting a link. I'd like you please to go to menti.com and use the code 8680070. Catchy, isn't it? 8680070. So you can click directly on the link. And what I want you to do, first of all, is decide which of the three options of an opening sentence in our answer to this question, which of the opening sentences should be used. Think about our Ewok J, remember? Okay, yeah, everybody has gone for the one that I would agree with. So our opening sentence for our together answer is source C should be considered. In fact, let me type it in so hopefully you can all see. Source C should be considered a useful source for an inquiry into Hitler's consolidation of power in 1934. So we've done the first bit, the easy bit of the Ewok J, inquiry. We've made clear that this is what we are writing about. Okay, right. Now I want you to click on to the next question that you should have. It worked properly. Right. The source provides insight into the views of Ernst Röhm, which concerned Hitler enough to fear. Which of these three should finish that sentence? Which concerned Hitler enough to fear that Hindenburg would replace Hitler with Röhm. Concerned Hitler enough to fear that Röhm was a communist. Or concerned Hitler enough to fear a future challenge to his leadership. I know it's disappeared for a moment. It's going to come back. Don't worry. I'm just going to share the whole screen with you. Okay, most of you voted. Just wait for a couple more. Okay, I think we'll go with what we've got so far then, because even if we do get a couple more, it won't change. The overwhelming choice is that we should say the source provides insight into the views of Ernst Röhm, which concerned Hitler enough to fear a future challenge to his leadership. I'd agree with that. Really interesting to see somebody chose that Röhm was a communist. It's a really good point. Whoever put that, that's not like an embarrassing thing to have decided, because definitely Ernst Röhm fits more into the socialist side of National Socialism, because he believed there should be a revolution where the wealth of the rich was redistributed to the poor, lots of things that would terrify many of the backers of Adolf Hitler in the industrialists. So not completely ridiculous to liken Ernst Röhm's views with communism, but he definitely wasn't a communist, given how much time he spent giving him a good shoeing. Okay, right. Now, what I'm going to need you to do, unfortunately, because I have limits on how many of these I can do, I'm going to ask you to put in another code. In order to continue with producing our answer. And the code is menti.com again. The code is 85 16 32 1. So www.menti.com. The code is 85 16 32 1. And it says, in addition, the source reveals Röhm's displeasure that Hitler, so remember, you've got the source that you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. What is Röhm complaining about? Based on the source, that Hitler has become too radical and is making too many changes too quickly. That Hitler has become part of the establishment and is preventing the social revolution Germany needs. That Hitler has chosen to support the army over the SA. Okay, just going to wait for a couple more. Okay, let's go with what we've got. If others are still deciding, then feel free to add to it. Interesting. There's only one of those which I would reject out of hand, and I apologise to those who chose the first option. Röhm certainly isn't complaining that Hitler is making too many changes too quickly. In fact, it's quite the opposite. What we know about Röhm is that Röhm felt that they had to change more radically and more quickly, and Hitler was becoming too safe. This idea of turning into a gentleman. Now, the next two options, well, they could both be considered as answers, which is why I'm really pleased that those have got most of your votes. So we had four. In fact, this was the main one I was thinking of, I have to admit. So in addition, the source reveals Röhm's displeasure that Hitler has become part of the establishment and is preventing the social revolution Germany needs. This idea is he's turning into a gentleman. We're not good enough for him anymore. But absolutely, I think that you can make the further point that he's also unhappy that Hitler has chosen to support the army over the SA. Now, the reason why I wouldn't choose that one flat out is that at this stage, Hitler hasn't definitely decided, but that's certainly the suspicion. Okay, so we can add Röhm also was upset at his suspicion that Hitler has chosen to support the army over the SA. Okay, Absolutely fantastic. Now, something that I've not done and I'm not asking you to do is to quote directly from the source. You can do, but you won't get any extra marks for it as such. So I don't feel there's a need to pick apart bits of the source and stick it in there. Now, on to the next thing that I want you to do. The source is the recollections, so the memories, of a Nazi official interviewed in 1940. These are useful because, now, look carefully at what the bold writing tells us. From the book Hitler Speaks, published in 1940 by Hermann Rauschning, a Nazi official who emigrated from Germany in 1936. Here he is quoting words spoken by Ernst Röhm when he was drunk in 1934. Why are these useful? Because he's part of the regime at the time of consolidation, because he would have no reason to lie, or because he was a close friend of Adolf Hitler. Which of those do you think is the main reason why it is useful? Okay, so reviewing the options, the one that we can discount completely is the suggestion he was a close friend of Adolf Hitler, because it doesn't tell us that. He might have been, but we can only go by the information that's been provided. So we can't claim it's useful because he's a close friend of Adolf Hitler, because there's no evidence, there's nothing to tell us that he was a close friend of Adolf Hitler. Secondly, he would have no reason to lie. Again, we don't know that. We can't be clear on that, and possibly he might be lying to cover himself, to protect himself, because he's no longer in Nazi Germany, so he might be seeking to blame other people. I completely agree with the choice that most of you have made. These are useful because he was part of the regime at the time of consolidation. This means that he would have direct experience of how, when, and why decisions were taken. Okay, so that point about he's experienced it, which is obviously going to be useful. Always remember, you know, the equivalent of a witness to a criminal act occurring. It's useful because they are there. That makes them more valuable. Okay, now for the last part, we've got our E, our inquiry. We've now got our W, our what does the source tell us. We've come into our O, our origins, nature, origin, purpose, by talking about where the source comes from. To finish, we need to come into the final parts, which is continuing to look at the where the source comes from and bringing in our own knowledge. So this time, if you bear with me a moment, can you again go to menti.com and this time use the code 7006075. In context, the source is useful as it supports the idea that the Night of the Long Knives was carried out because...
Sir, can you say the code again quickly? Sorry.
Yeah, 7006075. 7006075. And you've got three options. Does the source support the idea that the Night of the Long Knives was carried out because Hitler wanted a second revolution? Does it support the idea it was carried out because Hitler wanted to remove a powerful group who could threaten his position? Or does the Night of the Long Knives support the idea, does the source support the idea that the Night of the Knives was carried out because Rome was determined to replace Hitler as leader of the Nazi Party? Which of those do you find most convincing as the biggest reason why this source is useful. Have a think and make your choice. Who's going to blink first?
So I've answered it. I'm not sure why it's not showing up.
Right, let me just refresh it. That might be an issue. I feel like I spend a lot of my life watching a little circle spin around at the moment. Not sure I like it. Right. Oh, there we go. Right, lovely. Thank you for letting me know, Oliver. Right, so I'm glad nobody put that Hitler wanted a second revolution, because clearly he didn't. We've got Hitler wanted to remove a powerful group who could threaten his position. Okay, certainly from our own knowledge, we know that that is something which Hitler was very concerned about. Wanted to remove a powerful group who could threaten his position. Now, the source doesn't tell us that Rome is determined to replace Hitler as leader of the Nazi Party, but I think you could argue that the source offers a suggestion that that is a possibility. So I think you can include that as well. So the source is used to support the idea that the Night of the Long Knives was carried out because Hitler wanted to remove a powerful group who could threaten his position. The essay, and this is where you bring in some evidence, the essay numbered around 4 million men whose loyalty to Rome might encourage him to seek to replace Hitler as leader of the Nazi Party in the future. Okay, so you're bringing that in there. I think that's a secondary reason, but again, really good reason to have in there in Chuge. So well done, guys. I'm very, very happy with what you've done so far. On to the last one. Furthermore, at this time, Hitler faced only 3 barriers to the total control he desired. These were an internal challenge, so from someone within the Nazi Party, Hindenburg, and who's the other remaining challenge for Hitler in late June of 1934? Is it the Communist Party? Has he not dealt with the Communist Party? Has he not dealt with the trade unions? Has he not dealt with the army? Okay, right. Interesting. I'm glad this is exposed a little bit of a hole in our knowledge. I thought I'd covered this yesterday, but this is why it's useful to do this kind of exercise. It's definitely not the trade unions, because the trade unions were banned and wiped out by this point. Remember, where they have the public holiday, and when the public holiday ends and the trade unions go back to work, their offices have been occupied by the Nazis and they no longer exist. So it's definitely not the trade unions. It is the army. So we can write, these were an internal challenge. Sorry, these were internal challenge from within the party. President Hindenburg, who could replace him as chancellor, and the army, who could remove him by force. Okay? Which just leaves the final thing that we need to do, which is our judgment on usefulness. Now, this isn't anything particularly dramatic. We can come in and say, overall, the source is very useful for highlighting the divisions between Hitler and Ernst Röhm. Okay? Now, you've got that now. That's yours to look at. What I want you to do, and you've got 20 minutes plus added on time. I've given you until 11:30 to complete this. I would like you, please, on your classroom, you'll see that you've got another document. This time it's for source D, and this is your own copy. And there is a source. General Goering explained that he and her, Himmler, who were responsible for security, had been watching for weeks, even months. They'd been aware that preparations for a second revolution were being made by certain ambitious SA leaders headed by Rome. Hitler had decided to suppress the movement with a firm hand at a suitable moment. I'd like you to have a go, please. I've put a space there for you to do a plan, and then underneath, I'd like you to have a go at answering that one. Follow the Ewok J method. Give it your best shot. I'm going to keep the meat. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to close the meet because I don't actually need to come back together. So you can stay on and ask me any questions that you might have, or you can log off. I would like you, please, to submit your document to the Google Classroom by 11:30. So that way you've got 55 minutes. If you're desperate for the toilet or you want to grab a drink or a snack now, you can do, but you need to finish and submit this document by 11:30. Before we start logging off, does anybody have any questions about that?
So when was the trade unions got rid of? Like what year?
Find out, Oliver. You've got the internet at your fingertips.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Right, so if you haven't got any questions, guys, feel free to log off. What I'll do as well, I'll keep an eye on the assignment. So if you have questions whilst you're doing it, if you want to leave it as a comment on the assignment, then I will see it there and respond. Otherwise, you've got to 11:30. Off you go, guys.